Micheal Linklater is our next guest. I'm really excited to hear Micheal speak. Micheal is the program coordinator at the White Buffalo Youth Lodge, and Micheal himself had his fair share of difficulty in school, and he did make it through, though. And in the end, Micheal became a champion. As captain of the University of Saskatchewan Huskies, Micheal brought his team to the school's very first national championship in basketball. Micheal is a visionary, and he's working hard to create opportunities for youth in sport through his program, Prime Basketball. We're really excited to have Micheal here to share his story and his ideas around education. So please welcome to the stage kindly, Mr. Micheal Linklater.
All right. Check, check, mic check. All right. Well, I'm excited to be here. I'm really, really excited to be here. I want to give you guys the opportunity, because you've been sitting so long, to stand up, give yourself a quick stretch. You can thank me later. I was one who could not sit still very long in school, so I'm wondering if there's some of you out there who are feeling that right now. So some of you who are too kind to want to walk by the road to go and use the bathroom to sneak a break, now's your chance to just stretch out. Do I have any math teachers in here? Any math teachers? All right, I see one back there. What is a common denominator? Say that again, sorry? Bottom of the fraction is the same. Okay, well, I failed math class. You guys can sit down. That's why I had to ask somebody. Okay, so I really struggled in school, through high school, but I wanted to ask about the common denominator. And sitting here and thinking about when I got asked to speak, what I was going to talk about, and how I was going to share my story. And just sitting here and listening to the speakers before me, they spoke about exactly what I wanted to speak about. And the common denominators that I saw were culture. One was culture. You've seen it in both the presentations, the importance of culture. Next was role models or mentors, being able to have somebody to look up to and lead the way. And last but not least is stories. Storytelling. And that's how I feel we learn as Aboriginal people. And so here today, I'm not here as somebody who knows more than you. I'm not here as someone who's better than you. I'm just here to share my story. And every time you hear a story, everybody takes something different from that story, which is more applicable to them than others. And then I'm going to finish off with what I think is a recipe for success to helping Aboriginal, Indigenous, inner-city youth, because that's what I was growing up. So, let's take a quick drink here. My story begins before I was born, and I'm going to be quick. Chris, you're going to give me the 10-minute, 5-minute countdown? Perfect. So I'm going to try to get out as much information as I can. I'm a little bit hyper right now because I'm excited to be here. I said that 4 times already. So, back in 1980, my biological grandmother, Nancy Uchipo, she passed away due to alcoholism. After that, what happened was my mother was a part of the 60s Scoop. So for some people who are not familiar with the 60s Scoop, it's when the Indigenous children were adopted off to non-Indigenous families between the 60s to the early 80s. So my mother was a part of that. She ended up in Trenton, New Jersey, and there she was kind of all alone, no family. She was away from Saskatchewan, originally from Thunderchild First Nation. And out there, she obviously struggled, right? Missing her mother, family. She was struggling with addictions at the time. So what happened is she got pregnant, and she ended up having an abortion. And she felt terrible about what she had done. So she had prayed, she had cried, she had mourned, and she made a deal with the Creator saying next time she got pregnant, she was going to have that child, regardless of her circumstances. So years down the road, she ended up getting pregnant. So this time I was growing in there, and thank God she made that deal because I would not be here. So she went through with it, but she knew that she could not take care of me and that she was going to give me up for adoption the moment that I came out. While that was all going on, while I'm still being created, my grandmother's sister, Maria Horse, married Maria Linklater, she was searching for my parents, or for my mom, and her siblings. And that's where she had found them. And she had got in contact with them, and it was about 7 years with no contact, roughly. So my mother was in her early 20s when she had me, and she spoke to Maria, and she said that she was going to give her child up for adoption, and Maria said, come to Thunder Bay, which is where they were living at that time, and she said, we'll take care of your child for you till you get back on your feet. And so my mother being excited, she ended up going into labor, and I was born September 25th, 1982 in Trenton, New Jersey. So I do have an American passport. I am considered an American citizen, and that's all a part of the 60s scoop. So I guess I'm a product of that. So a few days after that, my mother and I and my uncle and aunt, we jumped on a choo-choo train from Trenton, New Jersey, all the way to Thunder Bay, Ontario. And when I got off the train, the first thing I did apparently was grab Walter's finger, and I hung onto his finger and I didn't let go. So we had an instant bond. And they started calling me Choo-Choo Boy, because I came from Trenton, New Jersey, all the way to Thunder Bay on a choo-choo train. And they used to tell me this story. And each night before I went to bed, they explained this to me, that I was a gift to them from the Creator. And coming into Maria and Walter's lives, Walter was a recovering alcoholic. They were both products of the residential school. Maria doesn't like to be called a residential school survivor. She likes to be called a residential school warrior. The reason for that is because she used to fight every single day. She tell me stories about ripping the nuns' veils off, biting the priest's ankles. She, like, for real. She was a rebel, and she fought. And so hearing these stories growing up, too, she helped instill something into me, and which is you as educators need to take this with you, is she taught me to be a fighter and to speak your voice, to speak your mind. If something's bothering you, and this is what we have to encourage our children, is they have to speak. Because for so many years we've been suppressed as Indigenous people. Even to this day we still are. But it is exciting times. I think we're going through an Indigenous revolution, with Idle No More, with a lot of the protests going on, with a lot of movements that are happening within the Aboriginal community. So we need to instill that, to give our youth a voice. They need to be able to know that it's okay to speak their mind. So going through elementary school, I really voiced my opinion. And teachers saw it as talking back. You're talking back, go to the office. When I wasn't speaking in a disrespectful way, I was just voicing my opinions. Maybe sometimes they weren't at the right time, but it was something that my mom really, really instilled in me. And when I say mom, I call Maria and Walter mom and dad because they've raised me since I was 10 days old. So we moved out to Saskatoon when I was 10, and I started going to school at St. Mary's Community School. And it was a bit of a culture shock because it was a change coming from a predominantly Caucasian school to coming to Saskatoon right in the inner city core neighborhood. So St. Mary's Community School and Pleasant Hill, it doesn't get really much awesome than that. And that's where I was fortunate enough to go. And the reason my parents put me in that school was because of the culture. They had a song and dance troupe that was there. There was smudging going on. There was a prayer said in Cree every morning. There was also O Canada sung in Cree every morning. So that's one thing that we have to do. So keeping in mind is the culture. So these are some of the things that help me be successful. I'm going to come back and touch on a few other things. I'm going to be all over the place. So what I found was a passion. My passion was basketball. And that's what kept me out of trouble, and that's what kept me motivated. That's what gave me a goal. That's what gave me a vision. And when I found basketball, it's what I did, day in, day out, all the time, as often as I could. And I wasn't very good to start, but a lot of practice, you're going to get good. So what ended up happening is I set goals for myself in elementary school. I said, I want to represent Canada on the international stage. My goal was to make the Olympic team, or Team Canada to play in the Olympics, but just where I could represent Canada. Next was to play professional basketball, and then the other was to play university basketball. And here I'm making these in elementary school. So I knew I had to get through elementary. I hated school. I didn't like it. I struggled. And I guess that's another thing, is everybody learns differently. Me, I'm a very visual person. I've been fortunate enough to travel across the world in the past 2 years, and I can tell you how to get somewhere in any city I've been, because it's in my mind and I can see it. But when it comes to testing, when it comes to words, when it comes to phone numbers, that stuff doesn't stick with me. As soon as I meet somebody, I forget their name, but I'll never forget your face. So I'm really visual. So keeping in mind, and as educators, you guys will know that everyone learns differently. So figuring out the different learning styles. When we hear stories, we're able to create those visions in our minds. So we're able to go back to a story rather than just words. So we can see the movie, we can see the video, we can see what's been going on in our head as you give out the information. So incorporating culture. With that, getting through high school was a challenge. First semester, math and science, failed. Had to take it second semester, pass marginally, 50, 57. Grade 10 comes, first semester, same thing, math and science, fail. Take it again second semester. So on and so forth till grade 12. And then I find out that I'm not going to graduate on time. And my goal of playing university basketball is quite in the air now. So I told my mom, and I said, I'm not going to graduate on time. I'm a little bit disappointed. And thinking she was going to be upset with me. And she said, it's okay, my boy. She said, don't worry. School will always be there, just as long as you get it done. So I felt much better. The next year, I ended up graduating, and I ended up getting a scholarship to United Tribes Technical College. I bounced around from a few different colleges and universities throughout my post-secondary career. And I was taking minimum course load. Same thing, too, with reading. When I start reading books and stuff, like I'll be reading through a paragraph, then I'll be getting through a page or two, and I don't even remember what I just read because I was thinking about last night's game, and then I got to read it all over again. So I really struggled in that sense, but I knew I had to get it done. So one of my biggest accomplishments is when I was down south my first year, I was taking nutrition and food service, and I ended up making the academic All-American team. Just getting by high school, and that was a huge accomplishment for myself. So my last year was with the University of Saskatchewan, and I was able to be nominated as team captain from my peers, and I was really able to play an inspirational part amongst my teammates. And what I did is I inspired them. I inspired them to believe in themselves because I believed in them. And sometimes when we're growing up as youth, especially Indigenous youth, not a lot of people believe in us. We already have a lot of things working against us. So I helped my teammates believe in themselves and believe that we together as a family, as a team, as a unit could win. So not too many people believed in us, but we were fortunate enough to go on and win that year. It was the school's first conference championship, and it was the school's first ever national championship. And at that time in 2010, the university had been playing basketball for 93 years and had never won anything. And since, they have not won either. Thanks. So that was a huge part of my success, my career. Was winning that championship. I ended up getting a call that summer from a general manager from a team in the International Basketball League, asking me if I wanted to play. I was trying to play it off cool. Yeah, sure, I'll play. But here inside, I'm just jumping for joy. Yeah, I'm right, so I'm gonna play. So then I get to the gym, and I go in his office, and he gives me a contract, and I take out my phone, and I say, here, take a picture of this. This is a childhood dream coming true. When I was in elementary school, I won't say his name because Delvin will know him, but a teacher told me, when he asked me, I wasn't listening in class, he's like, get out of class. It's like, okay. So he came out, and I wasn't ready to hear his message. He was going to give me an educational message. And I've been fortunate enough. I've been going around and speaking to different communities and youth for 16 years. And one of the things I always say to them is, I have a message for you today, and some of you aren't ready to hear it, and that's okay. Because some youth aren't ready for change depending on where they are in their lives. So that's what I shared with them, is you may not be ready for this message. So when I do that, it gives them an opportunity to think, okay, well, yeah, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. So I got him to take a picture, and I was thinking about this teacher in this time where he took me out of class, and he was trying to give me an educational talk. Okay, Mike, you got to do your schoolwork because it's important to have education. I'm like, yeah, okay. And he goes, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I looked up at him, bright-eyed. I'm going to be a professional basketball player. And he goes, no, you're not. He goes, you know that there's kids in the United States who are 7 feet tall, your age, who are dunking the basketball? And I just smiled and nodded. So what I did visually is I turned that into motivation. And I was like, okay, now there's somebody who doesn't believe in me that I have to prove wrong. So it helped me to work harder. I made that choice. Just like my grandmother made the choice to fight in residential school every day, right? Understanding that we have a choice. So, understanding that I had a choice, when I was signing this contract, I thought about that teacher, and I honestly thanked him. In my mind, I said, thank you for not believing in me, because he helped push me. So after that, I played 1 year professional. I had offers to go overseas and continue playing, but I had started a family already, and realizing the importance of me being the main caregiver, that I had to provide for my kids, so I did not accept any contracts to go overseas. So I stayed, and I realized the importance of giving back and recycling the talent and recycling the knowledge. And what I'm sharing with you today isn't mine to keep. It's things that I've learned and that I've been given to share. So when I go out and I do basketball camps, it's the same thing. I've been fortunate enough to be coached by Jay Triano. He coached for the Raptors. He was part of the national team. I played against Steve Nash in a basketball camp before, certain players. So to be able to come back and recycle that talent is what I've wanted to do. So after I signed the contract, played, that was good. I was done professional. Now it's time to start giving back. And that's what I've been doing for the last little while. More recently, in the last 2 years, why I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world for free is because I played for a 3-on-3 basketball team. FIBA is trying to incorporate 3-on-3 into the Olympics. It's already in the Junior Olympics. So what they've done is they created a world tour. And this world tour gets people from just every day, like any of you guys could make a team. You could go and compete in the qualifying tournament. If you win, you go to an America's qualifying tournament. Then you'll go to the world tournament. So we were fortunate enough to win. And last year we ended up getting, I think it was 6th in the world. And then last year we lost in the world championship finals. So we ended up taking 2nd. It's a couple guys from Saskatoon. So I was able to represent Canada. So I was really proud of that. That was a great thing. But hearing all of those accomplishments, one of the biggest accomplishments that I have ever achieved, I just had some notes here that I wanted to make sure that I got these points across, is when I was growing up in elementary school in St. Mary's, I was always told that you're Native. This is back in the 90s and early 80s too. I remember being told that as you're Native, you're not going to amount to anything. You're all drunks. You're not going to become educated. All of these things I heard growing up. And I couldn't argue the fact that all Natives drink because I didn't know anybody who didn't experiment. Personally, I didn't know. Like my Walter was an alcoholic for a number of years. Maria had tried it but never really drank. She had one time. So I couldn't say, I know somebody who never drank before. So I said, you know what, for a future generation, and this was in grade 6 because my classmates were already smoking weed and drinking, I said, that's what I'm going to do. So somebody can say that they know somebody. So I'm 32 years old today, and I have never once tasted alcohol or experimented with any type of drug. And that's my biggest accomplishment. So now I'm just kind of going to go back over and go through what I think is a recipe for success to help Indigenous inner-city youth, such as myself. I was high-strung, I was athletic, we need to channel some of that energy. For me, it was athletics. Also, too, is having a role model. We need role models, and that's one of the common denominators, is having a mentor, having a role model. So to have a mentor, so to be able to see somebody, introduce the youth into somebody who they can see for themselves, who they can physically touch and say they know that they've met. For me, growing up, I was fortunate enough to have Delvin. Delvin, you want to stand up real quick? Delvin, this was one of my elementary school teachers. A young, handsome Native man sporting a braid. I was like, yeah, all right, educated, right? So I had something to look up to, somebody. And one thing with him is he didn't really try to go against the grain with me. He didn't force me to do things. He allowed me to be myself. And he ran marathons. And I was like, holy smokes, a Native running marathons? I never heard of that. The hell? So he'd come to school the next day just really sore, and I'd be poking his calves. Oh, what's? Be getting mad. So I was like, okay, well, that's cool. That's something I can look forward to. Another person, my Uncle Vernon. Stand up, please, real quick. My Uncle Vernon Linklater. Okay, some of you may know him. But something you may not know is don't let the gray hair fool you. He will knock you out. 4-time super heavyweight Canadian champ. 4-time runner-up. Lost to Lennox Lewis in a split decision. Bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games. So I had role models in front of me that I could physically touch. He told me that, his travels around the world, and at a young age, it inspired me to be able, he went around the world, I can go around the world. So to see that. So with First Nations and reserves, it becomes its own world. And we only see, time's up. We only see what's in our world. So basically the boundaries of the reserve type deal. So you need to bring in people who they can see to share their stories and help inspire them. And then just to rattle off this quick list and wrap up here, as First Nations or Indigenous kids, you need to make us feel more welcome, especially when we're not in an Indigenous setting. So to our Caucasian teachers here, to our non-Aboriginal teachers, make us feel more welcome. As you heard the young lady say, she didn't feel at place. Same thing. If I don't dress up like this and I just wear my sweats with a fuzzy braid and go walking downtown, people look at me like if I'm going to rob them. So we still live in that world where we've been suppressed and people telling us we can't do certain things. Teaching our kids to be fighters, I had mentioned that. Allowing them to have a voice. Encourage the youth to be themselves. Who are they? Encourage them to go back to their roots and find their culture. Why we struggle. Society has done a great job of reading our cover and judging us by our cover. Seeing our brothers on the streets, who are homeless, who are addicted to alcoholism. They see the social services, welfare. They see us incarcerated. That's our cover. So when I hear racism towards us, I don't feel angry anymore. I feel sad. And I feel sad that they don't know how beautiful our culture really is. And if they would just take the time to see. There's no word for greed in Cree. We only took what we needed. And if you had more, you shared it. So to learn some of our ways is, and too, as educators, it's your responsibility to model that for them. Share your story. You have to share your story because it breaks down the teacher-student barrier. Now you're a person. Now, okay, I know you struggled. Okay, so we have something we can relate to, so now I'm going to respect you. And you have to check your ego and your credentials at the door. I work at White Buffalo Youth Lodge. I work with a lot of youth. That's where I learned how to play 15 years ago when it opened. I used that facility. I go back. Kids are like, hey, you. And I have a poster up in the thing through SAS Sport. They did this thing. Kids are like, hey, you're famous. I'm like, no, I'm not. You're famous. Instead of me standing up in here and looking down and saying, yeah, I'm famous, what I'm doing is I'm bringing them up to my level, to your level. We're all on a level playing field. We're all level here. And that's what we have to understand because we don't feel comfortable as Aboriginal youth walking into these big facilities. Like there was a recent environmental scan done, and Aboriginal people want to be serviced by other Aboriginal organizations. So keeping that in mind. Breakdown. And the last thing is the 40 developmental assets. I'm sure some of you have heard of them. The Search Institute created a template where there's 40 developmental assets that youth need in order to be successful. There's family, there's community, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. So I would encourage you guys to look that up and how ways you can incorporate that. So I went over time. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Have a good day.